Hello, everyone. You all welcome to today's edition of Women in Journalism. Happy Radio Day. How is everyone doing?
We are doing well.
All right, you're all welcome. You're all welcome to today's edition of Women in Journalism in South Sudan. I do hope you're all doing great. Happy Radio Day to everyone. And today we're going to basically focus on women in journalism in South Sudan. So I welcome all of you to this live broadcast, and I hope it will be beneficial for you. I welcome all the panelists, and since we will be in this discussion for only 1.5 hours, so we're just going to be very brief and get to what we will be talking about in just a few minutes. But first, just welcoming you to our panelists today. With us is Priska Akol. We also do have Ms. Juan Marina Modi joining us today in this panel discussion. Anna Nimiriano Sia, it's been a long time. I do hope you're doing great. You're also welcome to this panel discussion. Mary Ajit, I hope you're doing great also. Welcome to this panel discussion. Irene Aya, it's been a while. I hope you're also doing great. You're all welcome to this discussion. And to everyone tuned in today from all parts of South Sudan and also other parts of the world, you're all welcome. Now, as you also know, today is World Radio Day, so most of our journalists have been are participating in it, and we're really happy. I'm a radio journalist, and this day is ours. So we'll just go briefly to the bio of the panelists. I'll start off with Ms. Priska Akol. She is a broadcast journalist currently working with iRadio. She is experienced in both print and electronic media. Priska graduated from Daystar University with a bachelor degree in communications. She is also a gender activist. And then also with us in our panel today is Mary Ajit Goch. Most of us are familiar with Mary Ajit. She doesn't really need introduction, but I'll go ahead and introduce her either way. Now, she's the director of the Catholic Radio Network, a national organization consisting of 9 community-based radio stations in South Sudan and Sudan. She is also the chairperson of the Association for Media Development, which is AMDIS, a member-based association for the independent media houses in South Sudan. Now, prior to her current assignment, she served in AMDIS before as the deputy secretary in 2016 and progressively became the deputy chairperson before climbing to the top position of the association in 2017. Now, she is also the deputy chairperson of the South Sudan Civil Society Forum, a coalition of over 200 civil society organizations in the country. She has been helping coordinate and connecting the media and civil society organizations to work together to achieve peace and stability in South Sudan through peace messages and campaigns. Now, some of the role and responsibilities in the 2 media institutions include managing the CRN Center, coordinating the activities of its 9 member radio stations, advocating for the rights and freedom of journalists, defending the media houses and the journalists in case of any attack against them, and speak on their behalf. She is a vocal journalist and known for her advocacy for the media freedom and freedom of expression and defending the rights of journalists in South Sudan. Now, Mary has helped in founding new media houses, organizations, and civil society coalitions. Now, she earned a BA degree in communications at Daystar University in Kenya in 2015 and has over 9 years' experience in the media and the civil society. Quite the profile there for Mary Ajit. Like I said, most of us are quite familiar with you, and she is very vocal. Now, I have come across you in a few times, and I must say, you're doing a very great job, and welcome to this panel discussion. Now, for the next panelist, we'll be looking at Miss Juan Marina Modi. Ms. Juan, you're also welcome to this panel discussion. Now, she is a trained broadcast journalist with work experiences in South Sudan's known SSBC and EBC TV. As a journalist, her work spanned gender, education, and innovation. She later delved into activism for a while and eventually back to school in pursuit of further knowledge and skills. Currently, she is a student at Ohio University, finalizing an MFA in Communication and Media Arts, majoring in visual storytelling and communication for social change, while also editing for Humans of South Sudan, a photo blog documenting lifestyle and alternative narratives of South Sudan people. Ms. Juan Marina Modi, thank you so much for being part of this panel. And we do wish you all the best in your studies, and I hope you'll bring a positive input back in journalism in South Sudan. You're welcome. Also joining us today is Anna Namiriano Nunusia, Editor-in-Chief of Juba Monitor, Managing Director of Grand Africa Media Services Company, Director of Equator Broadcasting Corporation, EBC, Radio and Television Programs, Jubek State, co-founder of National Editor Forum, a member of Executive Committee, Association for Media Development in South Sudan, a member of Union of Journalists in South Sudan, co-founder of Female Journalist Network, and representing media in the high-level revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan. Now, she is a career South Sudanese journalist with more than 15 years wealth of experience in print and broadcast journalism in June 2019. Now, she won African Award in Glasgow, United Kingdom, and in October the same year, she won International Award around the United States of America. In March 2019, she was named among top 10 journalists recognized in the world of freedom fighters by IWMF. In the same month, she was number 8 among 50 journalists recognized as greatest leaders in the world by Fortune. Now, this award was given to her in recognition of her exceptional contribution to the newsroom, editorial integrity, and outstanding leadership. Now, in October 2020, she participated in the online panel discussion in Washington, D.C., United States of America, organized by International Women for Media Foundation, IWMF. She was their legacy for the year 2020 as a journalist. She writes opinions, news stories, and comments on issues of corruption, peace, gender, human rights, and others in a daily column by the name A Foot for Thought. She also edits stories, does administration work and official spokesperson for the newspaper. However, she's one of the founders of Juba Monitor, a daily English publication, and previously worked for the defunct Cartoon Monitor as editorial advisor and subsequently managing editor. She holds a degree in Bachelor's of Arts, College of Community Studies and Rural Development, University of Juba, and a diploma in Theology, Institute of Theology for the Laity, Catholic Archdiocese of Juba. She attended several local and international media training, workshops, conferences, and coverage in Kenya, Uganda, Washington, D.C., Sierra Leone, Djibouti, Tanzania, China, Khartoum, London, Ethiopia, and India. She obtained several certificates in the field of journalism. She's humbled and grateful for this invitation as a person and an institution in the country. Well, we are also humbled to have you in this panel, and we hope that we'll be learning a lot from you today. Now, I do have the bio of Irene here with me, but I'm experiencing a little bit of a challenge opening the bio. But please do bear with me. Please do bear with me. I will be updating you shortly about. I'll be updating you shortly about the bio. But I guess from now we can go on and we will get to read the Irene's bio and Lucy. Lucy Pony, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. I will be getting into your bio shortly, and Irene Aya, please do bear with me on this. Now we will be starting immediately, and once again, I welcome everyone who is part of this live broadcast. We're talking about women in journalism. That is the topic today. South Sudan women in journalism, roles, performance, and barriers. Now, women in journalism are individuals who participate in journalism and who are women. As journalism became a profession, women were restricted by custom from access to journalism's occupation and faced significant discrimination within the profession in the past. Now, around the world, women are far less likely than men to be seen in the media as subjects of stories. Women only appear in a quarter of television, radio, and print news. Now, in 2015 report, women made up a mere 19% of experts are featured in news stories and 37% of reporters telling stories globally. Now, gender imbalanced picture of society can reinforce and perpetuate harmful gender stereotypes. It is clear that the media must change how it reflects to the world. But who can change the media itself? Now, in South Sudan, men own most private media companies, and majority of reporters are men. Most female journalists work for state-owned media companies where men also have more decision-making power and where political bodies censor the content. Now, as a result, there is very little space for women voices in South Sudan's media. Now, as South Sudan moves towards the realization of peace in the country, journalists need to acquire adequate knowledge of conflict theory as well as additional reporting skills and the analytical know-how to be able to report accurately, impartially, safely, and be gender sensitive and within conflict situations. So with that in mind, you're all welcome again. We are most of us are quite familiar with the situation on ground. But like I said, we'll be going straight to to our discussion today because once again, please do bear with me. I'm finding a little bit of difficulty in getting the bios of two of our panelists today, but I hope to be getting into that just shortly. So, Miss Aya Irene, you are welcome. Now, I will be starting with you. Does South Sudan have a policy in place to protect journalists in South Sudan? What is the policy of women?
Thank you so much, Silaloki, and the rest of the panelists. I'm so happy to see you today. Some of you I've not seen you for a long time now. I hope you're getting me. Stella, can you tell me whether you're getting me? Hello?
We've lost Miss Irene Aya. Irene, I hope you will be joining us shortly again. Please, if you do, we'll be getting back to you. Well, let's move on to Priska Akol. Priska, I hope you're doing well. Please do tell us what is journalism, what is multimedia journalism, and what are the four main types of journalism, which is the most common one in South Sudan.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be about today. Journalism is a profession that involves collecting information about a particular subject and disseminate it through print, digital media, or broadcast media. And multimedia journalism is the use of text, sounds, videos, images to disseminating them to audience by using social media, using digital media, that is radio, using newspapers. Yeah, and the common type of, there are four types of journalism. There is investigative journalism, that is a common type in South Sudan, whereby a particular aspect like politics or social issues is investigated and then convey to reveal secrets. Mostly, this is very common in South Sudan because people investigate issues of corruption, the crimes, the human rights abuses in the country. And then another second type of journalism that is used here is the feature writing, whereby people investigate long issues that has been happening for a very long time, and then also bring out, magnifies the information to give it a more focus. And then we have the columns where people air out their opinions in newspapers to for people to know what is happening. And this is another type of journalism that South Sudanese mostly embarked on. You find someone is expressing their opinion on through columns, and so that people can get it. Stella, are you getting me? I hope my voice is a bit clear.
I'm getting you, Priska. Yeah, please go on ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and another type of journalism is the reviews. And as I mentioned, I hope you're clear, whereby you go through some information, you investigate them and do a review like the news or the feature stories, the programs, so that people get to dig some information about a particular issue in the country. Yeah. And tell me, I'm so fast sometimes, yeah.
All right. Which is the most common one in South Sudan?
Yes, the common type of journalism that is used here is investigative journalism. It's very common because people investigate different sectors like politics. They go through health. They go through. They investigate issues of economy and bring it out. Yeah, that's the common one, according to me.
Thank you, Priska. Call. Interesting you mentioned investigative journalist as the most common one. We do have an investigative journalist here with us in the panel, and it is Lucy Poni Modi. So I will be coming to you, Lucy. What are the guiding principles of media in South Sudan?
Yes, come again.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to see everybody, my colleagues. By extension, I might not have met some of you, but I have met some of you, so it's nice to see you all. So the principles for media and journalism are basically, they are those that are universal, that we adapt in our situation. And I'll just mention 5 that I think are core principles of journalism. And so the first one would be truth and accuracy. We all know truth is relative. Everybody has their own truths, but it is important that we as journalists try to get facts right. We try to get accurate information before we convey it. So we make sure that all the information we get is checked. If we are not able to corroborate in any way, it's important that we also say that so and so is claiming, and we cannot confirm this as the correct thing. So truth and accuracy is important. Number 2 is independence. Journalists should really be independent. We should be independent voices. We should not be acting formally or informally, or on the behalf of, special interest groups, politics, social groups or cultural groups. So as journalists, it is always important to not put ourselves at the forefront, but let the people speak, let the issues come out, and not be involved in the story. Sometimes it's difficult because we are part and parcel of the society. If things are happening, if killings are happening, if deaths are happening, we are part and parcel of what is happening. So if it is paining us, it's also paining the common people. But it is always good to be objective and not put your side of the story or your opinion in any piece. Number 3 is fairness and impartiality. It's always important that mostly when we look at stories, there are 2 sides of a story, mostly in most stories. So we have an obligation to actually present all the sides of a story, and so that we present some balance and also add some context to the story. So objectivity usually is very difficult to achieve, but it is what is desirable. And so we are always in the process of trying to make our reporting very fair and impartial, which is a difficult thing, but it is something that the journalists strive for. The fourth, I think, principle is humanity. Journalists should actually not be able to do harm to people. You know, if we are reporting, we report in such a way that we impact. You know, the way we use our words, the way we use our images. You know, it affects the lives of others, and always it is important to look at, you know, how is this going to be perceived by the other person if we are reporting about one person. And so how do you write in such a way that it does not do more harm to the society? And lastly, I would say accountability. In all the, I'm sorry, I have my children here shouting, but so sorry about that. So accountability, journalists should always try to be accountable. Everything we do, everything we write, we must be accountable to them. And so when we write things that are having errors, or we report falsely, it is upon us to actually go back to our audience and correct the information, and also show that we regret that this has happened. So it's important that always we try to ensure that whatever we are reporting is accurate, is it's fair. You know, we are accountable to it. When errors, we cannot. You know, errors are human. So once we are, it is always good to come back and tell people, well, this story was wrong, it's supposed to be like this, and we regret it. So these are the 5 core principles I think, I know journalists should abide by.
Thank you, Lucy Pony. We both know how those principles can be compromised, especially working as a journalist in our context here. But I think we'll be getting into that shortly. I do hope Miss Irene Aya can join us, because most of this, she will be in a better position to answer questions relating to protection of journalists. So I do hope Miss Irene Aya will be joining us in the course of the discussion. I'll be going straight to you, Miss Juan Marina Modi. What is the difference between journalism and broadcasting? You've been working in broadcasting for a while, our national broadcaster here. Please do tell us the difference between journalism and broadcasting. What are some of the guiding principles in broadcasting? And please tell us what it means to be a journalist in the USA and how different it is from South Sudan.
All right. To start with, broadcast or broadcasting is an adjective to journalism, which is the noun. So broadcasting is a subset of journalism. So basically, when we talk about journalism, we are referring to either print or broadcast, which uses electronic media, that is radio, TV. And now we have the new media, which is basically most of the news or most of the media that deals with the website, online, and all that. So basically, that is the difference between broadcast journalism and journalism as a whole. Journalism is the mother of the profession of writing, editing, and researching and presenting information to the people, and broadcast is just a baby of it. When it comes to the principles of broadcast journalism, I would say broadcast journalism uses the same principle as journalism itself, since it's a subset. The only difference might be in specific cases, depending on what type of electronic media that one is using. And so then all the three parts or the 3 fields of broadcast media then have their own subset rules that apply to the different situations that they are working in. So like for TV or the visual media, which is more of where I am well versed, is that looking at the visuals and then getting into using visual elements as additional sections as additional subs to relay or to reinforce the information that is being shared. And that differs from the guys in radio or those who are simply working online. To the third question about the experience being a journalist in the US as compared to back at home, there is really some difference. I think some of the events, or I would say like the US is a completely different world compared to where we are in South Sudan. So, but it also has its challenges. It's not all roses. I can't say it's all roses. It has its challenges, but at least the freedom is there. I mean, I feel so happy to take my camera and go to the streets and interview somebody without anybody coming to question me why I'm holding a camera. That feels so good. So, which I can't simply do when I'm in Juba. If I'm going to the streets, I have to go and look for a, a national security office in the nearby and report, hey, I'm here in Yohela and I'm going to be doing this and this, and then I'm given a green card if I can go and report. If not, I'm going to get into some sort of trouble. So I feel like that freedom is something that is so good, and like it helps time a lot. So the other challenges might be, I mean, the other difference could be very specific to the situations of the US. It's also being, I mean, taking calculable steps to who you approach, how you approach people. And of course, let's say cultural, via cultural context, how people are, and also how the people in the US are, is quite different. So the environment is really different, but both environments have their own challenges and merits.
All right. Thank you, Joan Marido Modi. We all know how it is challenging getting out your cameras here in Juba. You will have to explain why that camera is out. Thank you, Joan Marina, for that for what you've said here, rather. And Miss Mary Ajit Gotch, you're working with several radio stations, and today is World Radio Day. I know you are meant to be so busy, but you took your time to be with us here and to share with us some of the knowledge that you've gotten working with all the experience that you have. Please do kindly tell us more about the 9 radio stations that you're managing currently, and what some of the motivational factors that help you to do your work.
Thank you. Let me wish all my colleagues and all the viewers of this program a very happy World Radio Day. I'm so excited that this program and the interview came at the day when we are also celebrating radio, one of the most listened or consumed media in South Sudan. And coming to the Catholic Radio Network, the network that I'm very passionate about is the 9 radio stations are a component of the community-based radio network, which was founded by the Comboni missionaries, both brothers and sisters. And good enough, they donated this to the South Sudan Catholic and Sudan Catholic Bishops' Conference. So the radio stations are owned by the Sudan Catholic Bishop Conference, and we have 7 radio stations in the former 10 states or the current 10 states of South Sudan, and then 1 across the border in the Nuba Mountains. So the radio stations are founded on the ground of the Catholic institution, and actually all the values are based on the Catholic Church values. So I and my colleagues coordinate the activities of these radio stations. And also what is unique about us is that we are one network, and our vision and mission are the same. We do shared programs across the country. So if you listen to any of our radio station across the country, you will hear that we broadcast a joint news bulletin in the morning and evening. So if you are in Nuba Mountains, you are still receiving news from South Sudan. If you are in Wow, you listen to the same news that are coming across the 8 locations where we are based. So that's something really unique about us. And then also the issue of the local languages. We broadcast in English, Arabic, and 18 other local languages, which are more South Sudanese indigenous. And many people have been asking, hey, Mary, do South Sudanese really have over 80 local languages? And I'm like, yeah, all those languages are there, and we have been trying to maintain that all these South Sudanese communities can actually have access to radios using their own languages. So it doesn't matter if you don't speak English or Arabic, you can tune in into our radio stations and listen using your own local language. Additionally, CRN has a potential audience of over 6 million people in South Sudan and about 150,000 people in the Nuba Mountains. So currently in the Nuba Mountains, it's the only radio station operating, and the whole South Sudan region has about 1.5
Mary Ajit, are you still with us? All right. We also lost Mary Ajit there. I hope you come back, and welcome again, Miss Irina. Yeah, I hope this time round you will be with us longer. Well, and so I will come back to you to what you were trying to tell us earlier on, and maybe just to remind you about the question I had previously asked. Does South Sudan have a policy in place to protect journalists in South Sudan, and what is the policy for women?
Thank you so much, Loki. I am so happy that I am back. South Sudan have policies to protect journalists in general. We have the Transitional National Constitution of South Sudan. When you look at Article 32, it talks about access to information. This is the article where journalists derived their powers from for asking for information when they are looking for information to make their reporting. And then we have Article 24, which gives them powers for freedom of expression. This article is giving every South Sudanese powers to express themselves. And so the journalists have these powers to exercise their duty as journalists to express themselves using the media platform. And then we have Media Authority Act 2013. And when you look at the guiding principle of the Media Authority Act, it kind of protects
I don't know
journalists.
why.
Hello? Yeah, okay, sorry. I think that is an echo from outside. So
Yes.
the guiding principle in the Media Authority Act 2013, when you look at article from Article 1 up to J, it talks about protection of journalists. Journalists are not supposed to be arrested. Yes, journalists are supposed to be arrested because of their work as journalists. They are not supposed to be detained. And then the same media authority also established some bodies that are supposed to mediate issues that are arising from journalistic issues. So these are the policies that we have in South Sudan to protect journalists. And then you asked about whether we have a specific policies that protect female journalists. To this end, we don't have a specific policy that protects female journalists, but we have those policies that protect general journalists. But then you find that there are issues that are directly to female journalists, like now the issue of harassment, maybe sexual harassment. This normally affects mainly female journalists, and then we don't have now policy in place in most of the media house, not even at the media authority that can maybe look at the issues that are directly to female journalism, like now the issue of harassment that I talked about. So to this extent, we as the Female Journalist Network decided that we should kind of talk with all the media houses to have in place sexual harassment policy, because we think that this is one of the policies that, if not there, it will affect female journalists even from their participation in the media. Because we have got issues where some female journalists left the field when they complain about being sexually harassed by some people in the field when they go to do their stories, and even sometimes by their own media managers. So now to deal with these cases, if we don't have policies like sexual harassment policy, it is really very, very difficult. So this is what the first thing that we are trying really to look at it, to ensure that it is in place. And then we have other issues also, like issues of maternity leave. Those are constructual issues, but you find that most of the media houses don't have contracts that they give to journalists, and this also affects male journalists. But when it comes to female journalists, it is a double challenge, because sometimes they have to go for maternity leave. And this thing is not really stated in the contract, because this is a contract they don't even have. So once they go for maternity leave, they comes back. Sometimes they find when their position is already taken, and even they don't have anything to claim about, because in the first place, they didn't have even contract. So, of course, the labor law provides for the issue of contract that all companies, UN agencies, government institutions, they are supposed to have those contracts. And then the issue of maternity leave is well stated in the labor law. But then if we are not implementing this, especially in the media industry, it becomes an issue, especially to female journalists.
All right, Aya, thank you so much for that elaboration. There's a question for you from Shoki Morris, and let's be brief about this. According to South Sudan Media Act 2013, who is a journalist?
The Media Act is the media, because later the Media Authority tried to put in place media regulations, and then they put in place the broadcast regulation, they put in place journalists to get, code of conduct and etc. So there is a definition, a very short definition about who is a journalist in those media regulation. We say that a journalist is someone who has undergone a training in either mass communication or journalism for 1 year. This definition is there and is working in a media house. So for you to be a journalist, you might have gone through a training for 1 year, either in mass communication or in journalism, and you're working in a media house.
All right. Thank you for that brief explanation, Irene Aya. And now we've also been with Miss Anna Namiriano Nunusia. Welcome, and thank you, Irene, about mentioning working with other media houses to come up with a policy for sexual harassment at work. We have Miss Mary Ajit with us, and we have Anna Namiriano, who are managing a lot of media houses. So I believe it could make things a little bit easier talking to them and being able to convince the other media houses. So Miss Anna, you're also working with so many various houses. How are you able to work with various media houses as editor-in-chief of Juba Monitor, managing director of Grand African Media Services Company, director of Equator Broadcasting Corporation radio and television program? What has been your biggest motivation? Hello, Miss. Yes.
Yeah, coming to the question, in South Sudan, there's so no many media houses like compared to other developed countries. It is easy to connect in case of any challenges or any problems affecting journalists in media houses. Journalists in South Sudan have their network. In case of anything, you post and you come together. And media houses, we as editors, we even have editors forums. And sometimes if there's any problems, we call a meeting, we sit together, we discuss what is affecting media houses or what is affecting editors in their various media houses. And it's a matter of making connections and sharing experiences and challenges facing journalists in media houses. Coming to some issues, in case of other programmed media authority are there as regulatory body to bring media houses together. We have AMDIS, we have UJOS, that is the Union of Journalists in South Sudan. They will bring us together and we discuss. For example, if there's a misunderstanding between journalists or if there is critical situations affecting journalists in South Sudan, we come together, we discuss, and we see a way forward. For me, as editor-in-chief of Juba Monitor, because I have my column by the title A Food for Thought. That column is helping me to advocate for others. If there's anything happen to a journalist, for example, a journalist arrested, intimidated, or harassed, so I will not keep quiet. I will write and meet the authority through my writing. And if it happened to Juba Monitor, I will just go to the authority and report about that. And this has been done from time to time in collaborations with media associations like AMDIS, UJOS. Coming to the big motivations about the title I'm carrying, is the only thing is helping is the recognitions and the sharing experiences. Sometimes you may think like when somebody holds a very big positions, there is a lot of motivations like money, no. Journalism is a sacrifice. What we are doing in South Sudan, we are sacrificing. We have a lot of responsibility. You can look, some of us are still young, but we are doing that because we love the job. And we are doing that because we want to carry the career to the country. We want to encourage even others to follow our footsteps. But the motivation is not up to the extent that it's only that like you sponsor yourselves, like the award I got, the recognitions, that is the most important. And the most important thing also is to let the followers come and benefit from our experiences and even taking the career ahead. Otherwise, there's a lot of challenges and it is not easy to do it.
All right. Thank you, Anna and Mariano, and thank you so much for pointing out that we need to be there to help those who will be coming later on to practice journalism in South Sudan. Now, Miss Priska Akol, I hope you're still doing great with us here. Now, why are there very few women journalists in South Sudan? And what do you think should be done to encourage more women to become professional journalists?
least paid in the world. You find that a journalist is paid less than $40, and that we have responsibilities, we have families to take care of, but then you find that you are paid less. So most of the female journalists find it so hard to work in a media institution or a media house that pay you less than $40. Secondly, South Sudan, I would say, is not really a right place for female journalists to work in because of the sexual harassment, sexual exploitation that start from the media managers, some of them, and also with the male colleagues in the field. Because you find that you were sexually harassed. When you start taking up the job, most of the male colleagues, they think that you are not competent, you're not able, you don't have the abilities to do the work. And most women, they run away from that because of the intimidation, because of the harassment, because of being underestimated. Someone could be a graduate of mass communication, but when you take a job, people will be like, how can a woman do this? How can a woman be a photographer? How can a woman be a reporter? How can a woman do this? The patriarchy has made South Sudanese female journalists like less humans, and that's the reason why most women shy away from taking up the job, apart from the poor pay. And what needs to be done is that there is need for capacity building. There is need for training for all our sisters who want to be journalists in this country, or else we will have very few journalists. Because if you can't be there, even self-esteem is an issue. You go to a place and there is this harassment, sexual harassment, verbal, and you feel that place, and that need also to be done. The women need capacity building, they need their self-esteem to be boosted, they need training. You find if men are sent, or journalists are sent to a training in a particular country, you find about 10 journalists are men and 2 women only. Or if there are 20 journalists needed in a country, only 3 ladies will go, and the rest 17 or 90% are men, which really affect most of the women to go on with the profession. The rest of us that you see in the media are just there because of the passion, because we need to be voice for the voiceless. But if there is no capacity building and training and also boosting the self-esteem for our young sisters who want to be journalists, we will have very few journalists. These are some of the reasons, and that is what needs to be done to really give us capacity building and have vocational trainings. AMBIS is there, but it's not enough. We need to have another institution somewhere where other journalists can go. It's the only media institution that is training young journalists, that is training young people to be media personalities, but it's not enough. It cannot accommodate all the journalists from the 10 states from across the country. So that is what needs to be done, to have more vocational training that train female journalists, that also help them with financial ability, that also boost their capacity building.
All right. Thank you, Priska Akol. One of the challenges you mentioned is sometimes you're being told, oh, you're a woman, you can't carry a camera, you're not qualified enough. Let's talk about general qualification of journalism in South Sudan. And coming to you, Miss Lucy Pony, many people argue that most of the journalists in South Sudan have few or low qualities and lack professionalism in their work. Now, is this true? And why or why not? If it is true, why not? Now, what are the steps that should be taken to rectify the image of journalism in South Sudan?
That's a tough question. I'd like to. So I would not totally disagree with that assumption, because I think it's an assumption, but it is also true that not all, in every profession, there are people that are not very qualified doing the jobs they are doing. So it cuts across, and it's not just journalism alone. But that being said, I think the environment in which South Sudanese journalists operate is one that is very limiting. It's one that is very discouraging. It's one that does not allow for creativity, does not allow for innovation. It does not allow for, for freedom. There's no freedom really to do what we really need to do, like what journalists should really do. So it's very discouraging, and most of our very good journalists have left the country. Many have fled the country. Some other journalists have been killed while working, in the field. Many journalists have been silenced. in the country, there are things that we cannot talk about. There are issues that are red lines. And these are the issues that are really core, that people really need to hear about, the people really need to know that is happening. And so it's very discouraging if you come out from your school or you've shown passion to do journalism and you start working and then there's no encouragement, you are harassed, you are detained, you are followed every day, your security is at risk. Other challenges like what Priska has said, sexual harassment, especially for women, issue of low pay. Journalists are really low paid in South Sudan. There's just no motivation to even work. But I would say that yes, there's need for training for the journalists that have shown interest and that are there in the field. There's a lot of need for training. There's always room for improvement. But also, I think they are really doing a good job. I think the journalists in South Sudan are really working against, all the odds. They are really doing a good job, and I would just congratulate them for what they're doing, because many people have not been able to continue working as journalists in South Sudan. Many people have fled. And if you look at the number of, the journalists who are working for international media, these journalists at least get some good money. They can really go out and work and do investigative pieces or really work on feature stories that are really good, that would really show that this is a good story. But for the normal journalists, they're just on the beat. They are called, go to a press conference. They rush there, they get information, they bring it back, and it's out in the field. And another assumption also is that we tend to think that there is that journalists are the ones to blame for the poor journalism that happens. Journalists are really sent by the media houses. They're assigned to do jobs by editors, by their media houses. So for me, the buck ends with the editor. So if I bring a story that is not good enough, my editor should send me back to the field. I still need this information. I need this information for it to be good. So that means there is also and it's not a small if. It is true that there is a problem. There is a bit of we need a lot of training, even for our journalists, even for our editors, even for media managers. Because many times you'll find a journalist comes up with a very beautiful story. They need guidance on it, and you get an editor who cannot give that guidance. So what happens is the kind of story that will go out will not be a kind of a story that people would be proud of. And so if somebody from outside is looking at the kind of stories that is being aired in South Sudan, they'd be like, wow, these people are very low quality kind of journalism. Yet really the problem is really deep. It's with the journalists, it's with the media houses, it's with the editors, it's all encompassing. And also I think the issue of not sensitization. It's true that media houses in South Sudan have fallen back to the point of self-censoring. So we are not reporting on hard topics, and this is what is really selling. And if the international people are looking at us, or people from across East Africa are looking at our media, they'll be like, but why are these people not doing these bigger stories, And it comes back to the kind of environment we have. If we are not able to talk about politics within South Sudan, if we are not able to talk about land issues within South Sudan, if we're not able to talk about our tribal differences within South Sudan, then international journalists or foreigners will come in and do that kind of reporting for us. And much of the time, they do not get it right. Because we understand the context, we understand what is going on, we understand our communities better than the people that are coming from outside. Yet, they usually get the information better than journalists within South Sudan. And another last statement is this: that most of our leaders prefer to speak to international media. Our local journalists will go looking for comments on one, two, three things, but they will not get any response. they are not even accessible. Our leaders are not accessible to respond to issues. But when they are called by an international media, by BBC, by VOA, they are called by CNN, they are called by Al Jazeera, they are so smart, they are there speaking and giving that story. Yet for the local media, we will only wait for the story to come out on Reuters or on BBC, and then now we will cover it. So that is also another challenge. I don't know. I think also our leaders need a lot of sensitization on the importance of media, and especially local media, because that and we if we were going in the right direction, which is if the peace agreement was being implemented well, we are heading towards election. It is the local media that you use. It is the local media, because government and media and everybody else work together. So if we are to abandon our local medias because you feel they're inferior, why are they inferior? One, because you're actually not giving attention to them. They're inferior because they don't have better, the kind of work that journalists in South Sudan do is not commensurate to the kind of pay they are getting. It's not motivational. So I'm even worried about just listening to what Priska was saying, the issues of sexual harassment. I'm worried about the next generations of journalists that will come, because many people, even at this point, and I've spoken to a few people, they say that they would not like their children or their young people to get into journalism because it's, one, it doesn't pay, two, it is a risky business. So I'm worried about journalism in South Sudan, and I think it is something that we should start talking about. If this is getting very dangerous the way people are talking about, then what are we doing to make the environment more conducive, to make young people feel like, yes, I want to be the voice for the voiceless. I want to do these kind of stories for the people. So there are so many issues that affect journalists, and all these things tie back to the kind of quality of our journalism.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lucy Pony. You've mentioned a couple of things, and there are things that they seem to be recurrent. Things like sexual harassment has been mentioned by most of our panelists. So it seemed to be something that is quite recurrent and a real concern in journalism in South Sudan. You also did mention that before we say our journalists are not qualified enough, let's look at the environment that they're working in. Now, I'd like to go to Miss Anna Nimiriano. Anna, I hope you're still with us. Now, South Sudan is known to be one of the worst countries to work in as a journalist, now, according to some reports. Is this statement true, rather? Why or why not? Now, please do tell us what it means to work as a journalist in South Sudan. Mrs. Anna, are you still with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm just saying that the country that has severe conflicts, it has a lot of challenges, and it is not far from what you said. To be a journalist in South Sudan is not rather than to just work in risky environment. As some of the challenges my colleagues said, it is true. And journalists are really suffering during the process of getting informations. Like during the conflict time, especially for female or even male journalists, it's not easy to work. Sometimes when you are working, it is like you are risking your life. It is like you just want to volunteer yourself to be a martyr or to do what, because of the situations that are undergone. Now, even if you are doing work, there's not much recognitions. I think this is one of the things affecting us as journalists in South Sudan. But working in such an environment is not easy, because getting informations and working as a professional journalist, you cannot do it enough, because you cannot access other informations. Like other states, other areas, it's difficult to go and get information because of the insecurity situations. You go, you see people are ambushed, people are killed, People are harassed, even if you want, especially when we are doing investigating a story. You will be detained, you will be put in prisons or detained for some days. And in the process of doing this, you will find yourself that you fall sick. And if you are sick, even nobody bother to treat you. And as our colleagues say, even we are getting poor salary. And this poor salary cannot help you to some extent to help yourself if you fall in problems or you are become sick. So these are the challenges journalists are facing. But the problem is now you ask yourself, why are you risking yourself? It is because you love the career. It is because you want to give information to the public. It is because even the government need journalists, they need media houses so that their information reach to other countries. So South Sudan, I think when you come to the history of South Sudan, since we got independent in 2011, after 2 years, 2013, another conflict between the presidents and the vice president, Dr. Machar. So journalists from there, some of them, they lose hope. That is why if you make assessment, you will not find professional journalists that are many in South Sudan. Some of them are become refugees in the neighboring countries. Some lose their job, and some, because of the poor even salary they're getting, they left the journalism and they join other job that they will get better payment. So all these factors contributed so much to the life of journalists. Even up to now, we are trying our best to do, but you cannot go like far than a city to get information. Because even the access to information, you will know that officials are not cooperative to journalists to give information. That is why it's not encouraging. And they are even fearing, maybe, if they give the information and they are thinking that like it's tarnishing the name of the country. It is not like that. The truth is the truth. One day, even I was saying that it is not a journalist in South Sudan are the one tarnish the name of the country. What is going in the country is known because there's nothing hidden. Whatever the government are doing is known. Whatever what is going is known because there are international body also there. It's not only the journalists. What journalists are reporting is that cannot be true. But giving information also to journalists is not enough. The government are not given access to information is become a problem because and even balance story is not up to date up to now. Maybe with now the piece we have at least compared to 1 or 2, 3 years. So these are other factors. I'm sure it's not only in South Sudan. Any country, as I said, have severe conflict. Is not easy to work on. It's risky for journalists. It's risky for getting any information.
Yes, Miss Anna Nimiriana, I hope you finished what you were saying, and I do hope it's not because we lost you. But thank you so much for explaining that to us. Now, despite all the despite our working environment, we still dedicate ourselves, and a lot of journalists are still motivated in trying to inform and educate the public. Now, I'd like to come back to you, Miss Irene Aya. What are the most important qualities of a good journalist? Now, what happens when a journalist lacks some of these qualities?
Thank you so much, Stella Loki. The most important qualities of a good journalist, one of them is impartiality or neutrality. A good journalist has to be impartial, has to be neutral, has not to take side, has to balance their story. So any journalist who is not balancing the story is violating this quality of a good journalist. A good journalist has to be objective. And objectivity in journalism means a lot. So anyone who is not following this objectivity is not being a good journalist. We have accountability. A good journalist has to be accountable for what they are doing. What do I mean by accountability? Of course, we know that we are human beings, including journalists. Journalists are human beings. Journalists have to be responsible and accountable for what they do, for the story that they run. Before you publish a story, you need to look at the impact of that story. Now, especially in the case of South Sudan, we are just coming from a post-conflict situation, and even some parts of South Sudan are still having this conflict here and there. We also have conflicts within communities. We have conflicts in part of South Sudan where one community is in conflict with another community. So as a good journalist, you need to be accountable. You need to think about the impact of your story to the audience, to your listeners, to your readers. And then in case of any mistake, we have been seeing mistakes maybe coming from the newspapers around. Maybe sometimes it is in form of misspelling, sometimes it's form of putting another name in the case of another name. You want to write about the current minister of so and so, but you wrote the name of the former. So you need to come out and make correction. That is being accountable for what you do. So if you are not doing this, then you're violating. We have another very important quality is accuracy, truthfulness. A good journalist has to be truthful, has to bring exactly what happened. There are incidents where some people just sit under a tree and start imagining, and then they bring out information which are not correct. And there are also incidents where some people have been complaining that what they gave to the journalists was not the correct version that they have published. That can happen, but that is being violating the quality of a good journalist. You have to be truthful. You have to be trustworthy, because whatever you bring out for the public will tend to trust. But then if they find that what you have brought out is not correct, then you are going to lose the trust. And in media, we know what losing trust means: losing your integrity, meaning that if you were working for a newspaper, many readers will run away from that newspaper. They will go to another newspaper because they believe that whatever that newspaper is bringing is not trustworthy. So you need to bring information that are true beyond reasonable doubt. Now, what happens when a journalist violates these qualities? We have a code of conduct. Initially, before the media authority came with the recent code of conduct, AMDIS developed a code of conduct in collaboration, of course, with different media houses in South Sudan. And the code of conduct was there to guide journalists having all this quality. How should you operate as a journalist? What are the qualities of a good journalist? What should you do? It was all in the code of conduct. But then the code of conduct was voluntary. There was no penalty, whereby when you violate this code of conduct, you are penalized maybe by you are suspended, or your license is withdrawn. Even those days there were no licenses. So, but now the media authority has come with a code of conduct which is now under the media authority. And of course, it has now penalty. When you violate any of the quality of a good journalist, any of the provision that they have put, they have penalty for that. Only that now the media authority is not really fully established, because the media authority was supposed to establish some specialized committee. For example, complaint and hearing committee. This is the committee that is supposed to deal directly with people who have complaints against a certain journalist. Either a journalist going there to complain, or a person who feel that they are defamed by certain article, they go there to file a complaint. But up to now, these specialized committees are not yet there. But the code of conduct is now there with the penalties of any violations.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Irene Aya. Earlier on, you did mention about some of the qualities of a good journalist being accuracy and truthfulness. Now, Ms. Joan Marina, it's been a while, but I'm now back to you. Now, in broadcast journalism, now journalists research, investigate, and present news and current affairs content for television, radio, and the internet. Now, how do you verify credible information from fake news, given that everyone reports news in South Sudan through social media?
That's a profound question. So the thing is, with fake news, let's start with the core, which is false information. And that could be anything from something that is fabricated, concocted, and to something that does not have verifiable facts or sources to the information or quotes that is being stated. So it is very easy to actually term hate speech and misinformation, fake news on mainstream media. But when it comes to citizen journalism, it's a whole different pot of its own. So from the mainstream media, you can start with especially the principles of good journalism itself. We're talking about objectivity, you're talking about accuracy. Once a journalist sticks to that, they can stay away from, getting involved in incidences of fake news. But then when somebody is using the online media, a citizen journalist, people are throwing a lot of things online. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. All this information that people share, whether citizen journalists or mainstream journalists, it's a good thing, because sometimes rumors and grapevine is where journalists get inspiration to verify facts from and produce actual news. And that is after establishing the facts and talking to the right sources to talk about like the information. So filtering fake news starts with talking to the right sources, basically. So verify the information by talking to the right people. Yeah, you cannot get information from about something from a person who is so distant and unrelated to the information. And also, it is advisable if, like a journalist has a conflict of interest in relations to a certain news item or certain information, they are obliged to get out of it, to leave it aside and not partake in covering it. So that way, journalists have the clear mind and to question the content of what it is that they're writing about. But if they are inclined in certain ways, then they might not be able to give objective perspectives or objective content, objective news out of the story that they are establishing. So the other thing is that 90% of news information or let me say general information that is shared on the media is reported speech. You're reporting what has happened. You're reporting what so-and-so has said, what happened in a certain place. So that kind of draws the journalist in a safety net that you are going to share with people who the source of the information is, and it distances yourself. So in this case, it's now going to be the audience to judge by themselves that, okay, if so-and-so said it, then maybe somebody else said it in a different way. Now the audience will be by themselves to decide what they think is right. We don't have to disclose it to them at all times. And then the thing is that where parties that are conflicting, everybody involved partakes, like it's given the opportunity to partake, to share their angle, to share their perspective. So still, the audience members, get to decide for themselves. Now, this is a situation that is different for people who write opinions, because opinions are coming out of an individual's own perspective or experiences, observations, and all that. So how do they filter fake news? Now it's going to be that they have to go through various means, and it still goes back to checking across multiple sources to see the information that is right. And it's okay to actually divulge that there is different perspective from different people on the issue that is being aired. So credible sources is the easiest way to filter out misinformation, to filter out fake news out of the news reports. And yes, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work for a journalist to come out with the credible information, but it is worth it. It's not just about going for a scoop. Oh, something has happened. Yes, I got information. No, it's not just about the scoop, but about sticking to the right principles.
Credible sources. Thank you, Ms. Joanne Marina Modi, for that comprehensive answer and explanation. Now, still on broadcast journalism, I'd like to come to you, Ms. Mary Ajith. Welcome again. Thank you for joining us once again. You had briefly we had lost you briefly, but thank you for being here. Now, is there any policy guiding the radio stations in South Sudan? And is the policy being implemented by the various media houses?
Thank you, Stella. Yes, there are policies. Every media house across the world have policies that are guiding them, whether they are internal or external. In South Sudan, as mentioned earlier by Irene, we have the Media Authority Act. We also have the Broadcasting Corporation Act, and then we also have the Access to Information Act. All these acts have components of broadcast media. And actually, in the beginning, the main purpose of having the Media Authority Act was to regulate the broadcast media. And we came into a loggerhead with the government when the Media Authority Act was passed. The Media Authority Office was established and the registration started. Our plan as media institutions, when we participated in the enactment of the media laws, was that the Media Authority will be a regulatory body to the broadcast media, simply because broadcast media get their frequencies from the government, that is both TV and radios. And then the print media doesn't require any frequency from the government. So they have to be self-regulating so that they do their things. They use the code of conduct and ethics to guide them in their work. But things change later because practically what we write in the laws in South Sudan is not what we put into practice. So Media Authority Act is now regulating all the media houses in the country, whether it is print, broadcast, or other forms of media. That is number one. And under the Media Authority Act, there is a little mention of what is called National Communication Authority. National Communication Authority is the one now issuing frequencies to the media houses, those who are new, and then the old radio stations and televisions are renewing their broadcast frequencies through the National Communication Authority. So a little bit confusion of the roles between Media Authority and the National Communication Authority, because the act is more on the Media Authority, and then there is that component of the National Communication Authority. So all in all, anyway, because we have to abide by the regulations and the laws of the land, the radio stations or broadcast media in general is now registering and getting their frequencies through the National Communication Act Authority, sorry. And then still they are being regulated by the media authorities. So if it is issues concerning violations of the media laws, then they go through media authority. Also, the code of conduct and ethics. In journalism, what matters a lot is not what you get from the laws of the land, but even your own as a media house. So most of the radio stations in the country, and especially from the point of view of CRN, we have our own policies that are guiding us. We have the editorial policies in place. We have our code of conduct and ethics, which we use across our network to guide the work we do. And aside that, let me not forget one of the important legislation which is bringing our work down a bit, and that is the Panel Code Act, which is for 2008. This is still up to today is being used, and it is one of the laws that is being used to sue media houses to court, and then also charge them of defamation, because in the code of conduct or in the penal code, defamation is a crime. Meanwhile, in the Media Authority Act, it's still defamation. We can have discussion with whoever claims to have been defamed. But in the penal code, it is a crime, and this is where most of the media houses or the radio stations have challenges, especially with defamation cases, because it's supposed to be a civil case, and then all these cases are treated as criminal cases. And this is one of the reasons you see the media houses in South Sudan practice self-censorship, just to allow them to operate, because you can easily be closed down. There is no we don't really have the law being implemented in the way that it protects journalists or the media houses, but the laws are being implemented to protect the system and the government of the day. So because of that, you will find the media houses have more of their own internal policies that they use to self-regulate and to self-censor. So you will find a very important story not being published or broadcast simply because the media house feel that they will be shut down. For example, when it comes to balancing the stories, before the current politicians who are in Juba and some of their parties who are still in the bushes, it was very hard to interview someone from, let's say, SPLA-IO and bring their story, combine it with the spokesperson of the government. It is always difficult just because the government feels that whoever is in Juba and as reconciled with them, those are the people to be given access to the media or to be interviewed by the journalist. But any other person that is not in their territory in terms of the areas they control, those people, they are deemed to be enemies of the land. And the journalist, if you by any chance interview any of them, then you will be in problem. I'll give an example of one of the case of Ochaya, one of the journalists who was arrested before because he had an issue. He interviewed some of the representatives of one of the opposition party who is not based in Juba. And that became a big deal because they were like, where did you get the contact? We need you to reveal your source of information. Maybe you are part of those people. You see, then you will find journalists being labeled rebels because of balancing the stories. So there are really a number of policies that are there, but the problem is the implementation by the authorities.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ajit, for being precise to the point. Now, Madam Priska, Miss Priska, I hope you are with us. I can't see you, but I hope you're hearing me. Yes, Priska, thank you. Now, I'll be coming to you. What roles do you play as a journalist, and what achievements can be attributed to you? Hello, Priska, can you hear us?
Hey, let me see. Hi, Stella, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Right. Yes, sorry. I was saying earlier, my roles are to be the voice for the voiceless, because mainly I focus on issues affecting women, the GBV cases, sexual and gender-based violence in the area, and I cover issues of rape, women who are facing numerous problems in the country, and I've been doing stories of early and forced marriage in most of the state. I'm a survivor of early and forced marriage, and every time, whenever I hear a girl has been beaten or has been done ABCD because of refusing to get married, that will be my first story to do it. And most of the stories that I do, some are successful. There are some girls who had the chance to go back to school, and stories in Lake State where some girls were beaten to death because of refusing to get married to the people that the men their family chose for. Some of the perpetrators or the brothers or whoever happened to have been to beat the women or something, or the girls have been arrested. And that is something that I feel proud of, because as a girl, you cannot just be beaten because you want to continue with the studies or you choose the person you want to live your life with. But some of the people have been arrested. Some of the perpetrators of GBV have been arrested in Lake State, and I feel that is an achievement to me. And other stories of sexual and gender-based violence like rape, we've been, as journalists of South Sudan, we've been reporting these stories, and now we have a GBV court that is always advocating for women's rights. That is, we are part of that contribution, like that achievement, at least, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Priska. And the GBV court is really doing great. We keep on hearing about all these convictions, and we know justice is being served. So thank you for the good work you're doing, Priska Akol. May you continue doing the great job you're doing here in South Sudan. Now, a little bit similar question to Miss Lucy Pony. What roles do you play in your area of work, and what achievement can be attributed to your work?
So right now, I would say what I used to do. But before I answer that, I just want to say just a quick statement I wanted to make, that in the ideal situation, media houses operate in this way. So there are people that the public know, they're public figures who are in the journalists, who are journalists also, and then there are people who work behind the scenes. So we have those people who are reporting stories, who are always on the radio, who are always on the TV. And these are the people that are known. But there are people who are working behind the scenes. There are people who are editing the scripts, technical people who are working with the equipment. We have so many people who are working to ensure that there is, a story is properly aired, or, a story comes out well. Now, in that line, I would like to say that what I have done is basically not something I can attribute to myself, but I think I would attribute it to the team that I've been working with through and through. A lot of our work as journalists is teamwork. It's really teamwork. It's, we sit together, we look at a story, we look at the angle, we come up with a proper angle, we come up with ways of how we are going to improve the story, those kind of things. So I feel it is a lot of collective effort of the teams that I've worked with in the past, or I'm still working with. And I would just like to mention, because when we just had our independence, we were reporting live in Juba for the first time as iRadio, and I was heading the news team there. And it was a beautiful experience that we went on the clock and we were speaking on the radio live, and we were bringing stories from all over, from within Juba, listening to people, listening to what was happening in the mausoleum. It was a beautiful experience for us. And I think that is one of the greatest moments that I had working within South Sudan. That moment when iRadio went live. It went live for the first time. We had people speak on the radio. We had call-in shows. I think that is one of the most beautiful moments that we had. And I'd like to just say something to Priska, because I think I also see she's doing a lot of political stories, some political stories. I'd like to encourage you, because there is an issue here that men look at us as inferior. You even mentioned that.
Yes.
Men who are in the media look at female journalists as very inferior. And so even when people are being assigned, they would always assign the female journalists to stories of, social issues, women issues, issues of culture, those kind of stories. But we are bigger than that. I think we should challenge them. We are bigger than that. We can do bigger stories. We can do political stories. We can do analysis. We can do these kind of things within the media. We need to know that these are things that are possible. One of the problems and challenges I want to also say here is that journalists lack exposure. Our journalists, South Sudanese journalists, most of them lack exposure. Many journalists who just come out of Juba University and boom, they're in a media house. And this explains the problems where we even have media houses that do not have contractual agreements with their journalists. So you don't have a contract, you're paid very poorly, there are issues that will follow you and follow you. So I think if we could have exposure of our journalists, they just come outside South Sudan, come see how female journalists or other journalists are working out here, what kind of things they are doing, how they are doing it, and maybe replicate that in South Sudan. I think that would really help, because I think we are lacking that aspect of exposure. We have all these other challenges, but exposure is really a big thing too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy Pony, for pointing out some of the few important things you have pointed out. And now, because of time, we'll just go through very fast to Miss Anna Nimeriano. Can anyone become a journalist now without being trained in the field? You did mention, Lucy Pony, you did mention about journalists coming straight from Jamajuba and entering into the field. Now, Anna, can anyone become a journalist without being trained? Now, please elaborate. And please do tell us, what are some of your biggest achievements as a journalist?
Study journalism or mass communication in universities, but it was theory. You can study the theory, but coming to the practical part of it, that is a different thing. So many students, after finishing university, some of them are being sent for internship and to get practical part. Because when a student of mass communication is sent to a media house, that one is to get the practical part of the training. Like he is to be assigned to write a story, and that story is to be corrected. And even if it is in electronic media, also is to see how the person can broadcast or present him or herself in the media. And that one is very important. In South Sudan, currently we have a Media Development Institute under AMDIS. And Irene is, at the moment, is acting as a principal for that institute. And after the students, after students finish from university, what is happening is they will be sent to that institute. After completing a training for 1 year, or after completing all the semesters, they will be assigned to media houses. And there in the media houses, it is now the role of editors to train those journalists. And after training them, of course, all the ethics or the principle of journalism is there, so that to guide them. Writing good story, being accurate, all that can be done to them. And by doing all that, that is why you will be able to assess whether the person is doing the right thing or not. Because a journalist without training, you cannot really assess the quality of the information. I don't want to go back to what my colleague mentions about the principle or the code of conduct and the accuracy. And the big achievements, now me as Juba Monitor Editor-in-Chief, I'm just training journalists. And Juba Monitor is not only circulating in South Sudan. We have office in Uganda, and we are partly also in Nairobi. It is only that the corona pandemic is making us limiting but we have offices in this place. Also, we are getting students from those countries. Like last year, we have 2 students sent from Uganda to come and have their internship in Juba Monitor. So this one I'm doing because I need to train, and this could be the big achievements I can make, train, apart from what I'm We are writing the story as advocating for the rights of people. Currently, last week, just recently, we published a story about the central bank introduced an new policy action. So it wake up out even the interest of government. Because now in South Sudan, economic crisis is one of the biggest challenges. The rate of dollars is just increasing every day, and you see people are suffering. And now by having actions in the bank, and it's still the economic crisis is continuing. That one. So these are the things um, I'm doing as to at least improve even the country and improve in another way the policies the country are imposing. I know it's not easy, but as media fraternity in South Sudan, these are the things we are doing so that at the end we need to improve. I know other things with the government is not easy to be improved immediately, but at least to say once anything is going to bad, we need to say it up. And we need to say that journalists are doing their work in a very good environment, and let them even get the quality of what training in the media houses.
Well, thank you, Anna Nemiriano, for that. Now, coming to you, Miss Juan Marina. I'm sorry, I'll have to ask you two questions at a time. Now, what are some of your major achievements? What are some of the major achievements that can be attributed to you in broadcasting? And what are some of the challenges facing women journalists in South Sudan?
All right, thank you for that. So I would say like an achievement that I'm quite very proud of. It's not something that I would take it as only me alone, because I've worked on it with my team back in between 2017 and 2018, was my work with mitigating hate speech and fake news. And that is the work that I did with Defy Here Now. And we were able to put together a training manual for media personnel and as well as citizen journalists. So for me, I'm quite very proud of that book because this is something that is going to be used over and over. And right now, part of that has been the South Sudan book was the prototype, and now another one has been produced with the context of West Africa. So now South Sudan is a prototype that is being used in other places. So that is something that I'm very much proud of. Journalists, let me say around the region, Africa, East Africa, there are a lot of challenges. When it comes to South Sudan, there are many challenges. When it comes to women in journalism in South Sudan, the weight is much more. And one that is, that strikes me a lot is the male dominance of the field. And this kind of, in a way, brings systemic or individual, confinement to certain things, So it's like the men control a lot of things, and then the women either, by virtue of what they see, it's like some things are not normal for women to do. It's not normal for women to, to be in top positions in media houses. It's not normal for women to to be in the practical field and production work, because men are the ones who sit and edit all those things. So I kind of see like it's a factor of what's on the ground. It's not supposed to be a factor that contributes to bringing down women, but somehow it affects, the self-esteem of many female journalists. Personally, I found myself when I joined struggling with, trying to bring myself out. And I think this has been mentioned by Priska and Lucy as well back in the few minutes back. So the only way to challenge that is that we should keep on pushing more. whatsoever is that if there's never been a female maybe manager, we should push for it, because it's not going to be handed to us on a silver platter, but we are the ones to work for it. And unfortunately, for a woman to succeed in a patriarchal setup, you have to be almost twice better than your male counterparts. So that becomes a very, challenging thing, but it's something that we should keep on pushing up and pushing for, to see that we break some of these barriers. Right now, we are moving together with the history of South Sudan. I know, like, generally they're talking about the 25%, we're talking about the 35%, but even the women in media, we are moving together with this movement. We are flowing together. So there's a lot of battles that we have to, fight to push ourselves forward mentally, because it starts with the brain. Once we cross the mental barriers, we get to where we want to be.
All right, thank you, Miss Joanne Marina Modi. And I'll be coming also to you, Miss Mary Ajit. Now, you've had a lot of success stories, but what are some of the stories that you can highlight? And is there any mentorship program that is helping you? And also, please do highlight to us some of the challenges facing women journalists working in the radio department.
Thanks once again, Stella. I would say in South Sudan, if you work in the media and claim to have achieved something alone without the team, then you must be lying to yourself. Because if you don't have someone at your back, someone to support you, do the work, someone who is there to call for your protection and safety, you can do your work. So I will talk about AMDIS, how we fought to be in the leadership of AMDIS as women. So since its establishment in 2006, AMDIS had only been having one woman in the board of directors, and that is executive board. And then we came in through an appointment, like what the government does, appointing women, but they cannot for elections. So we came in through an appointment, like two of us at once. That was in 2016. So at least we were three. And then slowly, we pushed for more other women representatives to be brought in. So now, as we speak, when the elections came in 2018, 17, what we first did was to ensure that we actually vote for ourselves as women, to ensure that AMDIS for the first time as a chair lady or chairperson. And that is how I came in to be a chairperson. And now, let me tell you a big success story for AMDIS. We have a chairperson who is a woman, and then the deputy is a gentleman. We have the secretary for the first time who is a lady, and then we have a deputy, and then the third person is a treasurer, and we have a deputy treasurer who is a woman. So in a board of executive committee of 7 members, 3 are women. That is past 35% that we are talking about in the peace agreement and in the constitution. This is the spirit women should actually be putting ahead of them, fighting for one another. And I would not go without mentioning Veronica Lucy during the meeting in 2016. She actually mentioned that she's about to end her term at AMDIS, but if she doesn't see a woman coming up to her position, because she was a deputy for so many years, a woman becoming a deputy or a chairperson of AMDIS, she will not feel comfortable going out of AMDIS. And you know that dream made us to fight when we came in. The second one is media managers. Whatever position you get, what are the policies you are putting in place to ensure that you are bringing female journalists on board? Last year, I made sure that CRN worked on a gender policy to ensure that there are women in the newsroom. Because without these policies, they will think you are just shouting because you are a woman. So let us do things in a professional way to ensure that our colleagues actually come on board in a professional way. So now if that gender policy dictates that there must be this number of females employed by your media house or radio station, people will have no choice but they will bring on board ladies. So the other major success we did on our side as media houses was the fight for the media laws to be passed. This is a great achievement from the side of the media houses actually and media managers, because even if the laws are not being implemented the way we wanted, the fact remains that we have set a ground to have the media laws in place. I know time is running out, and then when you talk about mentorship, journalism, yes, it accommodates a number of people because we need people with medical background to report on health issues. We need those ones with a low background or legal background to report on the legal issues. But if you have not attained any training in journalism, whether it is a certificate course or a diploma course, you can't fit in. So what we do on our side as CRN and also on the side of AMDIS, there is this tailor-made training for those who are aspiring to be journalists. So at the state level, yes, you can do a program in your local language, but do you have the ethics? Do you have understanding of journalism? So on the side of CRN across the country, we offer 6 months training, in-house training to high school graduates so that when they come, they can present programs in their local languages, but they have training in journalism. This is one of the great things that we are doing across the country to ensure that those who are aspiring to be journalists and those who are already practicing journalism, but they have no qualifications or academic backgrounds, can actually get trained and they can do their work. Another way is that we are achieving our objectives is connecting to the regional media, like the organizations in the regional countries like Uganda and Kenya, to ensure that what we do, we don't do it outside the international standards or the regional standards of journalism. And we have seen this helping a lot because they also stand in solidarity with us when the situation is bad. On the side of CRN also, we send our journalists some of the Catholic media houses in the region because we share the same values and they have been there years in the field better than us. Some of their media houses started in 1960s while we established just recently in 2005. So there is a lot to be learned from the region. And the issue of mentorship also on our side, I think Irene, Anna, and the rest of the journalists who are here, we thought that we need to form this female journalist network so that we also transfer some of the knowledge we have to the young journalists who are upcoming. So these are the things we are doing currently. Coming to the challenges, exclusion. It is not political exclusion anymore in South Sudan. It is all the sectors where women are being excluded just because they want to give excuses that, oh, you will take your maternity or you will be coming late for work, you are not professional, as if they have tried or they have seen me working before to conclude that you are not professional. So the media environment generally in South Sudan is also not conducive for all the journalists, but it is worse for the media, the female journalists, just because of restriction and the laws that government have put. Stereotypes also is an issue, and that is my last point.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm concluding. Where you go to the field and someone is asking you, are you also a journalist? Especially if they see you a female. This word we have had a lot. And if you have a low self-esteem, you'll be like, no, I can go to the field tomorrow, or I can move with my male colleagues because I'm being asked whether I'm a journalist or not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, a lot of challenges have already been highlighted. Now, let's just give recommendations moving forward. What are your recommendations? Now, I would start with Miss Irene Aya, then to Lucy Pony. Start with some of the recommendations that we can give?
Thank you so much, Stella. One of the recommendations should be solidarity and supporting one another. I think it is very important for women journalists to support one another. A lot has been said, sometimes people say that women are the worst enemy of themselves. So for us to see more women coming in the media, we need solidarity for one another. We need to stand with one another. We need to support each other. Another recommendation would be development of sexual harassment policy. We need to do this. We need to kind of see into it that we develop a national sexual harassment policy, which can be adopted by all the media houses, and they can take accountability for it in case of anything. Next is training for female journalists. We have had that female journalists have really been lacking training, being from a male-dominated field. That is why we see a very few female journalists in the field. But for some of us, really, we have been doing a lot of work to ensure that we mentor female journalists. So this should be our collective effort. We have to ensure that we give a lot of opportunity for training to female journalists and ensure that we really see a way of mentoring them, not only when they join the field, but even in different institutions like at the university level, at secondary level, because this is a field that we want to make it attractive to women. Getting back, the issue of cultural barrier, where some people think that journalism is not good for women. We need to make this field attractive for women by looking at their issues, mentoring them, encouraging them to join the field. Another thing could be exposure. We need to ensure that these female journalists that we are bringing them up, they have to get kind of exposure so that they can also see how things are done in other countries. We know that there has been some kind of opportunities which always come through media houses. But how many female journalists get this kind of opportunity? Because we are already aware that, of course, we are working in a male-dominant profession. So especially for some of us who are in key management role in a media institution, we have to ensure that when any opportunity comes, the first thing which should come into our mind is female. Our gender policy. For sure, we cannot just climb a ladder without gender policy. We need to ensure that this policy is in place. For AMDIS, yes, we have. What about for other media houses? Do they have gender policy? What about for our other institutions? So this has to be in place so that at least, because how women always get, somebody rightfully said it, that for you to qualify as a woman in a top position, you must have a maybe double qualities. We have a lot of weak men, getting roles, in getting key roles. They are not questioned. But when a woman is appointed in a key position, people start to question, who is she? What qualification does she have? Is she married? Some of the questions are even weird enough. So some of these questions, we have to remove them, because these are some of the questions that make our women not to succeed. A question of, is she married? Are men also ask this kind of question? So these are some of the things
Let's wind up, Irene.
to look at. Otherwise, the time was not enough, really. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Irene. Now, Miss Lucy Pony, anything to add on? Hello, Pony. Lucy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I was. Okay, sorry. I think my recommendation would go to the government and all the media institutions, because I feel like many of the journalists feel like, you know, the institutions really are siding mostly with government. I just pray and hope that our institutions will be able to uphold the principles that are there, and be able to protect the journalists the way they should. And a conclusion would be, for me, I think unity is important, and I think as journalists we should continue even in this very environment that is not very conducive, but we should continue to push on, and peace is really very important. I pray that we get peace, because once there's peace, once there's security, many things can fall into place, especially now that we already have policies in place to put so many things down. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, due to time, unfortunately, we'll have to stop here. Thank you so much for being part of this panel discussion. I hope we can discuss about this more next time. Now, our lovely panelists have been Ms. Aya Irene, who is the acting principal of media, or rather MDs, Ms. Priska Akol, multimedia journalist currently working with iRadio. We do have Ms. Lucy Pony, who is a journalist and also doubles as an investigative journalist. Ms. Anna Namiriano Nunusia, thank you for joining us today. She is the editor-in-chief of Juba Monitor, managing director of Grand Africa Media Service Company, director of Equator Broadcasting Corporation, EBC, radio and television programs. And then we did also have Ms. Mary Ajith Goch, who is the director of Catholic Radio Network, a national organization consisting of 9 community radio stations in South Sudan and Sudan, and Ms. Juwan Marina Modi. Thank you so much for being part of this panel discussion. We couldn't have had better panelists, and thank you for taking your time to be part of this. Also, thank you to UN Women for giving us this ample time and having to use their Wi-Fi. It's been very resourceful. So once again, for everyone who has been part of this on our Facebook Live, thank you for being part of this. And to South Sudan women intellectuals, we thank you for bringing these spaces for us to talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and bye.